Tessa Grant's heel snapped clean off as she stepped into the grand marble foyer of the Kensington estate, and of course, it happened in front of the groom's entire family. She gritted her teeth, keeping her balance with the grace of a circus performer, clutching her leather-bound planner like a lifeline. "I swear this isn't symbolic," she muttered as she straightened up, half limping, half strutting toward the group waiting near the sweeping staircase. A tall man in a tailored navy suit stepped forward, his amused eyes catching hers as he reached into his jacket pocket. "You planning to walk down the aisle like that?" "I'm the wedding planner, not the bride," Tessa snapped, trying not to notice how ridiculously attractive he was. Strong jawline, dark hair that looked like it had been styled by accident and turned out perfect anyway, and a voice that made her knees wobble worse than the broken heel. He crouched and handed her a pair of black velvet flats. "My sister keeps emergency shoes in the coat closet." "You're welcome." She blinked. "Thank you. Zane Kensington, brother of the groom. Apparently also your footwear savior." Of course. Of course he was a Kensington. Of course he was the rich, smug brother of the man she was here to help marry someone else. She slipped on the flats, standing straighter. "Tessa Grant, wedding planner. And I can walk just fine, thanks." Zane's smile widened. "I'll believe that when I see it." Tessa turned to greet the actual couple, Cameron Kensington and his fiancée, Isla, who were thankfully too distracted by their own dreamy gazes to notice the shoe drama. They were young, sweet, and head over heels. And they'd hired Tessa for the biggest wedding of her career, an outdoor ceremony on the family's private vineyard in Napa, followed by a reception at the Kensington estate. And the bride wanted everything done in 6 weeks. 6 weeks. After finalizing the initial walkthrough and confirming the floral theme, lavender and white, not blush and gold, despite Zane's sarcastic suggestion of neon pink, Tessa began coordinating with the estate staff. She didn't see Zane again for 3 days. And then he showed up at her office. "I brought coffee," he said casually, walking in like he owned the place. Which, considering the Kensingtons were funding the wedding, he technically kind of did. "You're not on my schedule," she said, glancing up from her laptop. He set the coffee on her desk. "I figured if I made an appointment, you'd find a way to cancel." "I still might." He leaned on the edge of her desk. "I wanted to ask about the rehearsal dinner. That's Cameron and Isla's call. I know, but I'm hosting it. And I want it to be perfect." She narrowed her eyes. "Why do I get the feeling you don't care about table linens or charcuterie boards?" "I don't," he said honestly. "But I do care about doing something memorable for my brother. And I thought, maybe you'd help me pull off something special." Tessa studied him. He didn't seem like the type to ask for help or care about details. But there was a flicker of something real in his eyes. She sighed. "Fine. What did you have in mind?" Over the next few days, they spent more time together than she ever expected. He arranged a surprise jazz band from New Orleans, and she helped him coordinate a candlelit rooftop dinner overlooking the vineyard. He paid for everything without blinking, booking out the rooftop of a luxury hotel, flying in the chef Isla had once mentioned she loved, and even installing temporary fairy lights shaped like vines. "How much is this costing you?" she asked one night as they walked through the setup. Zane shrugged. "Doesn't matter. My brother deserves a beautiful night." "That's generous." He looked at her. "You make it easy to want to do more." Her heart stuttered. She looked away. The night of the rehearsal dinner, it rained. Not just a drizzle, a full-on downpour 30 minutes before guests arrived. Tessa watched the clouds roll in from the balcony, her perfectly coordinated seating charts and floral arrangements soaked. She turned to Zane. "This is a disaster." He didn't flinch. "Come with me." "What?" "Trust me." Against her better judgment, she followed. He led her to the penthouse suite of the hotel where a full backup dinner had been arranged, candles, music, waitstaff, everything. "I had a feeling about the weather," he said with a small grin. Her jaw dropped. "You planned this?" "Of course. I wasn't about to let all your hard work get washed away." Tessa blinked, something warm blooming in her chest. "You did all this? For them?" Zane's eyes met hers. Maybe not just for them. Their moment was interrupted by the arrival of the bridal party. The dinner was a hit. Isla cried. Cameron hugged his brother. Everyone toasted with champagne and caviar. Later, after the guests left and the music faded, Tessa stayed behind to help the staff clean up. She was rolling up a tablecloth when Zane appeared beside her. "You know," he said, "if I'd known hiring you would mean watching you take charge in a rainstorm and save the night like a superhero, I would have bribed Cam to propose sooner." She laughed. "I'm not in the habit of letting things fall apart." He stepped closer. "Neither am I." For a second, neither of them said anything. The air between them was thick with something she couldn't quite name. She should have walked away. Should have said goodnight and gone home. But instead, she whispered, "Why are you really helping with all this?" Zane's expression softened. "Because every time I'm around you, I want to be." Tessa's breath caught in her throat. She didn't say anything, not then. But something shifted in that moment. And neither of them would be able to pretend otherwise for long. Tessa barely had a moment to breathe after the rehearsal dinner before the next wave of chaos hit. The bridal gown shipment was delayed. The florist's assistant had dropped the custom arrangements list into a fountain while trying to take a video for social media. And her assistant, Lucy, had called in with a fever so high she was hallucinating that she was marrying a potted plant. So when Zane appeared at the vineyard mid-morning, dressed in a charcoal button-down with his sleeves rolled and sunglasses tucked into his collar, Tessa didn't even flinch. "You always show up when things are on fire," she said, crouched in the grass with her phone wedged between her shoulder and cheek as she tried to reconfirm the cake delivery time. "I'm starting to think you like it that way," he replied, kneeling beside her and gently taking the phone from her hand. She opened her mouth to protest, but he was already speaking to the bakery. His tone calm but firm. "Yes, that's correct. No, we're not changing the flavor again. Just have it here by noon Friday." "Thank you." He hung up, handing her the phone. "There. Crisis contained." She eyed him warily. "Why are you here?" "I had a breakfast meeting nearby and figured I'd stop in to see how things were going." She narrowed her eyes. "You don't seem like the type to just stop in anywhere." He didn't deny it. "Maybe I wanted to see how you're holding up." Tessa stood, brushing her hands on her skirt. "I'm 5 seconds away from turning this vineyard into a battlefield, but other than that, peachy." Zane straightened, his expression thoughtful. "You always carry everything yourself?" She crossed her arms. "Is that a problem?" "No," he said. "It's impressive." The compliment caught her off guard, but before she could respond, Isla's sister came sprinting across the grass, her face flushed. "The calligrapher canceled," she gasped. "All the seating cards, the menu signage," she said. "Her dog ate the ink and she had to take him to the emergency vet." Tessa closed her eyes. "Of course she did." "I'll fix it," Zane said. Tessa turned. "You don't even know what calligraphy is." "I know people," he replied. He pulled out his phone, stepped away, and within minutes returned with a name and a solution. "There's a woman in Sausalito who does luxury invitation work for high-end fashion houses. She owes me a favor." Tessa blinked. "What kind of favors does a calligrapher owe you?" "Let's just say I helped her get her studio space a few years ago." She stared at him. "What exactly is it that you do?" Zane gave a one-shoulder shrug. "Real estate. Mergers. Acquisitions. Sometimes I just make things happen." Tessa couldn't hide her surprise. "So you're one of those people who never hears the word no." "Not true. I just don't accept it." For a moment, the sun filtered through the vines, casting a golden glow between them. He looked at her like he was trying to read past her defenses, and she hated how much she wanted to let him. "I should get back to work," she said quickly, turning away. But Zane didn't leave. Over the next 2 days, he kept showing up. Not in the way that interrupted or distracted, but in ways that made her job easier. He coordinated with vendors when her phone died, arranged for backup lighting when the outdoor lanterns failed testing, and even helped load tables when the delivery crew bailed without warning. "You're not exactly dressed for manual labor," she said one evening, watching him lift a crate of silverware in a crisp white shirt that probably cost more than her entire wardrobe. "I'm adaptable," he replied, setting the crate down without missing a beat. Later, as the sun dipped low over the hills, he handed her a bottle of water and sat beside her on the edge of a wooden platform being built for the ceremony. "You always wanted to plan weddings?" he asked. "No," she said, unscrewing the cap. "I wanted to be a chef. But culinary school was expensive, and I had a knack for organizing things. So I started helping friends with parties. One thing led to another." He nodded. "Do you ever regret it?" "Only on days where I almost strangle a flower vendor with string lights." He chuckled. "You're good at it. Better than most people I've seen in business. You take chaos and turn it into something beautiful." Tessa looked at him, surprised by the sincerity in his voice. "What about you?" she asked. "Was this whole empire-building thing the plan?" "No. I wanted to be a pilot," he said, glancing toward the horizon. "But my father had a stroke when I was 21. Cameron was still in college. Someone had to step in." She frowned. "That's a lot of weight to carry." "I got used to it," he said. "But sometimes I wonder what it would have been like if I'd done what I wanted instead of what I had to." They sat in silence, the vineyard quiet except for the rustle of leaves and the distant hum of cicadas. "Do you ever let anyone in?" she asked, surprising even herself. Zane didn't answer right away. "Not often. It's easier not to." "Why?" He met her eyes. "Because once you let someone in, they know where to hit you." Tessa felt something shift in her chest. She didn't know what to say to that, so she didn't say anything at all. The next morning, she arrived at the estate to find a box waiting for her on the table in the event tent. Inside was a pair of custom white sneakers with her initials embroidered in gold on the heel. A note sat on top in clean, slanted script. "For when you run the world. Or the wedding." "ZK," she stared at the shoes, her pulse thudding. Behind her, someone cleared their throat. She turned. Zane stood there, watching her. "They're not glass slippers. But I figured you'd wear them more than heels." Tessa swallowed. "You didn't have to do this." "I know," he said. "But I wanted to." He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "You're not like anyone I've met, Tessa. And I don't do this kind of thing. But with you, I want to." She hesitated. "You're the groom's brother. And you're the planner," he said. "Not the bride." There was no mistaking the look in his eyes, now intent, steady, open. She didn't move. Not away. Not forward. Just let the words hang there, trembling in the space between them. This wasn't part of the plan. But maybe the plan had never really mattered. The morning of the wedding dawned with a sky so clear it looked painted. Tessa stood at the edge of the vineyard, clipboard in hand, mentally running through the final checklist. Tables were in place, the arch had been secured, the string quartet was tuning their instruments, and the custom lavender aisle runner had just been rolled out. Everything was in motion. Everything was perfect. At least on the surface. She hadn't seen Zane since he left the sneakers with the note. They hadn't spoken, not because she didn't want to, but because she didn't know what she'd say. He'd crossed a line. She'd let him. And now there was a weight in her chest that hadn't lifted since. "Tessa," Isla called, jogging up in a satin robe, her hair already pinned in loose waves. "Have you seen Cameron?" "He's with the officiant, going over the vows one last time," Tessa said, glancing at her schedule. "You're not supposed to see him until the ceremony." Isla gave a nervous laugh, then lowered her voice. "I think I'm going to throw up." Tessa reached out, steadying her with a hand on her arm. "You're just overwhelmed. It's normal." "No, it's not that," Isla whispered. "It's my mom. She's already had 2 glasses of champagne, and she keeps asking the caterers if they're serving shrimp, even though she's allergic." Tessa exhaled. "I'll handle her." "You're a miracle worker," Isla said, squeezing her hand before rushing back to the bridal suite. Tessa pivoted, scanning the area for Isla's mother, then spotted her near the bar, waving a flute of bubbly at a waiter who looked one wrong answer away from fleeing the state. Tessa jogged over, gently intercepted, and smoothly redirected the woman's attention to a newly arrived fruit display. By the time she returned to the reception tent to check on final touches, Zane was already there. He was adjusting one of the centerpieces with a quiet focus she hadn't seen before. "You're not on the schedule," she said, her voice even. He looked up, his expression unreadable. "I thought you might need backup." "Everything's under control." He nodded slowly. "So I'm not needed." She hesitated. That's not what I said. He stepped toward her. Then say what you mean. She folded her arms. This isn't the time. Why not? You've been avoiding me for days. I've been planning a wedding. That never stopped you before, he said, eyes steady. So what changed? Tessa looked away. You did. There was a pause. A beat of unsaid things. You think this is some game to me, he said. You think I show up, throw some money around, give you a pair of shoes, and it's supposed to mean something. She lifted her eyes to his. Doesn't it? I didn't do it to impress you, he said. I did it because I see you. I see how hard you work, how much you give. And I wanted to give you something back. You're the groom's brother, she said. This is supposed to be their day. And I'm not doing anything to take that away, he replied. But I won't pretend I don't feel something every time I look at you. Tessa's throat tightened. You don't even know me. I know you hate asking for help but give everything to everyone else. I know you haven't taken a real break in 3 days. I know you haven't eaten anything since breakfast yesterday because you've been too busy making sure this wedding is perfect. She blinked. How do you? Because I've been watching, he said. And not in the way that makes you uncomfortable. In the way that makes me want to be better. Her voice cracked. You don't get to say that to someone you barely know. Then let me get to know you, he said, voice quiet now. Not here. Not today. But after this is over. After the last dance and the last toast. Let me take you to dinner. No schedule. No clipboard. Just you and me. Before she could answer, Lucy burst in from the other end of the tent. We've got a problem. The driver took the wrong turn and the groom's tux is still in San Rafael. Tessa turned instantly. I'll call the concierge at the hotel. Maybe there's a backup. No need, Zane said, already pulling out his phone. I'll have one brought in from my tailor in 30 minutes. She stared at him. You can get a tux delivered to the middle of a vineyard in under an hour? He didn't break eye contact. For you, I can get anything. As he stepped outside to make the call, Tessa let out a slow breath. She pressed a hand to her chest, trying to steady her heart. She didn't know what scared her more, the fact that he meant it or the fact that she wanted to believe him. The ceremony went off without a hitch. The tux arrived on time. The vows were heartfelt. Isla didn't cry until the second verse of the string quartet's rendition of her favorite song. And when Cameron kissed her under the lavender-draped arch, guests rose in applause. Tessa watched from the back, her hand unconsciously resting over her heart. Later, when the sun dipped behind the hills and the reception lights twinkled to life, Zane found her near the edge of the dance floor. You did it, he said. She nodded. They're happy. That's all that matters. He hesitated. What about you? She looked at him. I don't know how to do this. You don't have to, he said. You're not alone. She wanted to believe him. Wanted to fall into the warmth of his words and the steadiness of his gaze. But the walls she'd built over years of doing everything herself didn't come down easily. I'm scared, she admitted. So am I, he said. But I'd rather be scared with you than safe without you. He held out his hand. She stared at it, then up at him, then slowly placed hers in his. And just like that, something shifted. Not the world. Not the sky. Just her. Letting go. Letting in. Allowing one perfect, terrifying step towards something real. The wedding was over. The guests had gone, the dance floor empty except for scattered petals and the faint scent of lavender lingering in the warm night air. Tessa stood barefoot at the edge of the vineyard, her heels dangling from one hand, watching the last of the catering trucks pull away down the gravel drive. A breeze rolled in from the west, lifting strands of her hair from the nape of her neck. Silence settled over the estate, not empty but peaceful. For the first time in weeks, there was nothing left to coordinate. No timelines to track. No emergencies to extinguish. And yet her heart was anything but quiet. You didn't disappear, Zane said behind her. She turned to find him standing a few feet away, jacket slung over one shoulder, his tie undone and shirt sleeves casually rolled to his elbows. The light behind him from the outdoor lanterns cast a soft glow across his face. I thought about it, she said. But I figured if I left without saying something, you'd hunt me down anyway. I would have, he said easily. Even if I had to crash another wedding to do it. She gave a soft laugh, but it faded quickly. I don't know what happens now. That makes two of us, he said. But I'm not going anywhere. She looked at him, at the steadiness in his expression, the quiet certainty she'd come to recognize. You could have anyone. I don't want anyone, he said. I want the woman who made today happen on 3 hours of sleep and a list longer than my quarterly reports. Tessa shook her head, half in disbelief. You don't even know what my life looks like outside of this. Then show me, he said. What are you doing tomorrow? She blinked. Tomorrow? Yes, he said, stepping closer. We both know you're going to be restless by noon and pretending you're fine with a day off. So let me take you somewhere. No schedules. No logistics. She hesitated. Is this your way of asking me on a date? It's not a date, he said. It's a detour. She arched a brow. To where? He tilted his head. Do you trust me? No, she said without hesitation. But I'm curious. That's a start. They left the estate just before midnight. He didn't tell her where they were going, only held the passenger door open to a sleek black convertible parked discreetly behind the oak-lined drive. She slid in, her dress still dusty at the hem, her curls half falling from their pins. They drove in silence at first, the wind tugging at the edges of her wrap, the hum of the engine the only sound on the quiet country road. She didn't ask questions. For once, she let someone else lead. They arrived at a private hangar just outside of Napa. You're not serious, she said as he parked beside a low-lit runway where a small jet waited, gleaming under the floodlights. Always, he said, cutting the engine. She turned to him slowly. You're flying me somewhere at 1 in the morning? I'm not flying, he said. I have a pilot. But I am taking you somewhere. Where? You'll see. She stared at him for a moment, then laughed softly. This is insane. Probably, he said. But so was planning a wedding in 6 weeks, and you pulled that off flawlessly. The jet lifted off 20 minutes later. She sat beside him, feet tucked beneath her as the lights of the valley disappeared below. They landed just after 2 in the morning. Tessa stepped out onto a private coastal airstrip, the scent of salt and sea hanging heavy in the air. In the distance, a glass-walled villa perched on a cliff lit up like something from a dream. I needed a place to think, Zane said as they walked the narrow path toward the villa. I bought this place last year. Only been here twice. It's beautiful, she said. It was always missing something, he replied. The villa opened into a wide living space with floor-to-ceiling windows. The sound of waves crashing far below echoed gently through the open doors. There was no staff, no distractions, just the two of them and the distant horizon. I didn't bring you here to impress you, he said as she stepped onto the balcony. I brought you here because I wanted to give you something without strings. Without expectations. You don't owe me anything, she said. I know, he said. But I want to offer you something anyway. She turned to him. What? A choice, he said. You can go back to your world and keep building other people's dreams. Or you can let someone help you build yours. She stared at him. You don't even know what mine are. I'm ready to listen, he said. For as long as it takes. There was silence between them, the good kind, the kind that held possibilities instead of fear. I don't know how to let someone in, she admitted. You don't have to, he said. You just have to let me stay close enough that you don't have to do everything alone. She didn't move for a long moment. Then she walked to him, slow and sure, and pressed her forehead to his. I don't want perfect, she whispered. I just want real. You've got it, he said. All of it. They stayed in the villa until sunrise, curled on the oversized terrace couch, wrapped in a blanket neither of them remembered pulling over themselves. They didn't talk about the past. They didn't plan the future. They just existed together in a quiet, beautiful in-between. 3 weeks later, Tessa stood in a different vineyard, clipboard absent, hair loose around her shoulders, watching a new bride walk down the aisle. This time she wasn't the planner. Just a guest. Zane stood beside her, hand resting against the small of her back. You look restless, he murmured. I'm trying not to critique the seating layout, she whispered. He leaned down. Want me to distract you? She grinned. What did you have in mind? I bought the catering company, he said. She blinked. What? They were struggling. The owner was about to sell to someone who was going to gut it. I figured you might want to run it. She turned to face him fully. You bought an entire company because you thought I might like it? I bought it because I knew you could make it something incredible. Her eyes searched his. You're serious? Always, he said. She didn't hesitate this time. She kissed him right there between rows of white chairs and watching guests, not caring about timing or appearances or whether it was appropriate. Because this time it wasn't about perfection. It was about choosing something real. And she was all in. Tessa adjusted the strap of her leather tote and stepped through the glass doors of the new catering office nestled on the edge of the Marina District. Sunlight filled the minimalist space, casting long lines across polished wood floors and white quartz countertops. The smell of rosemary focaccia and something citrusy floated in from the test kitchen. She couldn't believe this was hers. Well, technically there's now. Zane had insisted on structuring the company with her as majority partner. She hadn't asked for it. He'd done it anyway, with no need for gratitude or praise. Just a quiet understanding that she didn't want to be someone's employee she wanted to build. And he'd made space for her to do exactly that. You're late, came a voice from the back hallway. Tessa rounded the corner to see her new executive chef, Naomi, standing with her hands on her hips, flour on her cheek, and a clipboard of her own in hand. I brought bribes, Tessa said, holding out 2 oat milk lattes and a paper bag filled with pistachio croissants. Naomi snatched the bag. You're forgiven. The kitchen was already humming. Staff bustled between stations, prepping for their first private dinner event, that evening a 6-course tasting menu for a local gallery's anniversary. Tessa watched the rhythm of it all, heart lifting. This wasn't just a relaunch. It was a rebirth. Behind her, the door clicked open. Zane walked in wearing a navy pullover and dark jeans, a folder tucked beneath his arm. His hair was tousled, like he'd driven with the windows down, and he looked far too relaxed for someone who had probably just come from closing a commercial real estate deal worth millions. You brought the permits? She asked. He nodded, laying the folder on the counter. Signed off this morning. You're cleared to serve at full capacity. Tessa let out a long breath. We're actually doing this. You are, he said. I'm just here to eat the food. Naomi passed through again, muttering about missing microgreens, and Zane leaned closer to Tessa. I have a surprise for you later, he said. She gave him a wary glance. The last time you said that, I ended up on a plane at 2 a.m. You liked that surprise. It took me 2 days to find my shoes. He grinned. You still owe me dinner. I thought I was feeding you tonight. I meant just us. No staff, no menus, no events. Just you, me, and whatever's in your fridge. Tessa tilted her head. Do billionaires eat leftovers? If you made them, he said, I'd eat nothing but. Later that evening, after the tasting event went off without a hitch and the last guest had wandered out murmuring about the truffle mousse, Tessa slipped away to the rooftop above the kitchen. The view stretched out toward the bay, the water shimmering beneath the stars. Zane was already there, 2 glasses of wine in hand, a wool blanket slung over his shoulder. She joined him on the oversized lounge chair, curling her legs beneath her. He passed her a glass. They didn't speak for a while, just sat there listening to the distant sound of waves and the occasional bark of a sea lion. I never thought I'd be here, she said finally. Where? Happy, she replied. Not waiting for the next disaster. Not building something for someone else. He turned slightly. I didn't do this for you, Tessa. I did it with you. You're not someone I rescued. You're someone I chose. She looked at him. Why me? Because you challenge me. Because you see through the noise. Because when everything else feels like strategy and performance, you're the only thing that feels real. Her voice dropped. And what if I mess it up? Then we'll fix it, he said. Together. She leaned into him, resting her head against his shoulder, letting the warmth of the wine and his presence settle into her bones. There was no tension anymore. No unspoken fears. Just this something solid and steady and undeservedly good. You know, he said after a while, I've been thinking about something. That's dangerous. I want to build something from the ground up. Not just buy and flip. Something real. With you. She lifted her head. You want to start a business? I want to start a life, he said. I want to wake up beside you. I want to argue about furniture and complain about taxes and kiss you in the middle of a grocery store. Her heart tripped. Are you asking me to move in with you? No, he said, setting his glass down. Then he reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. I'm asking you to marry me. Tessa's breath caught. Inside the box was a delicate ring. A gold band wrapped in a spiral ending in a single oval diamond nestled beside a tiny sapphire. Understated. Elegant. Unmistakably her. You're serious. I've never been more, he said. I know it's fast. I know this doesn't follow anyone's rules. But when I see you, I don't think about time. I think about forever. She stared at him, heart full and aching and whole all at once. Yes, she said. The word came out without hesitation, without fear. Just truth. He slipped the ring onto her finger, and she laughed light and breathless and disbelieving. You're going to have to plan your own wedding, she said. I'm delegating that to the best in the business. I'm not planning my own wedding. You're not, he agreed, drawing her into his arms. We're planning it together. They kissed beneath the stars, the rooftop quiet except for the wind and the distant pulse of city life below. A year later, they stood under an ivy-covered arch on the same vineyard where it all began. The ceremony was small, just family and close friends. No client expectations. No curated drama. Just two people who had built something real and were ready to keep building. Tessa wore a simple gown of silk and lace. Zane wore a suit with no tie, his hand never leaving hers. Naomi catered the reception, and Cameron gave a speech that made everyone cry, including Zane, who tried to blame it on the wine. There were no emergencies, no rain, no broken heels, just laughter and music and love. And when they danced beneath the lights, Zane leaned in close. I told you I could get you anything. She smiled up at him, eyes shining. You gave me everything I didn't know I needed. He kissed her, slow and deep and sure. And this time there was no question about what came next. Only everything. Together. Always.